Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering VCT America Stage 2 playoffs. For this occasion, I have here with me another broadcast son has been covering the entire league, not just in playoffs, but also every other event in the league so far in 2024. Vansilli, I'm sure a number of you are already familiar with what he does, but in case for those that don't know, he's a broadcast son. He's been a caster, an analyst, and mostly been juggling within those roles, and then some for the better part of a few years, not just focusing on VCT Americas. And so, Vansilli, once again, really do appreciate you taking the time, just making this happen, making this interview happen. Just want to ask you the obvious introductory question. How are you doing at this moment in time?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me. I think it's an honor to be here, actually. I've been watching your interviews and your videos for quite a long time. Actually, quite a long time, like to say, the beginning of this year, because when we were prepping for VCTs for 2024, we were trying to get some articles and getting some feels and some vibes of how some players were getting ready here for the year. I fell onto your channel, and I've been loving the content since. So when you asked me to be a part of this, I was like, yep, let's do it right away. No hesitation. And it's an honor to be able to talk with you today.
For sure. I mean, we're at the very end of the VCT America season. You know, we're now getting ready to ramp up for champions. Just want to ask you also just how the line of work has been for you just this entire year, and how difficult it must be just because of how many stuff you have to just kind of take care of, just analyzing the teams while also taking care of your casting. You know, how you've been kind of focusing on those two aspects for you overall.
Yeah. That's actually a great question. By the way, I'll give you a heads up. Usually when I answer questions, it's kind of long-winded, so hopefully it's not going to be too long while you're watching these. But overall, if I want to focus on the year for 2024, first off, to see how VCT Americas went, because I didn't have a chance to cover any Masters yet or Champs in the past few years, but been loving this so far here in the Americas. I think the competition's been great. I think the venue here is super awesome, and Ride still allows for us to really travel back and forth between my home in Montreal and here to cast in LA. So it's nice to have that right now. So I personally could still have a nice work-life balance where I could go home and be with my family and hang out with them, and then come back and work and cast some games. The level of competition has been super awesome. I think it's nice to see, where G2's been coming up from the ascension from challengers to get to where they are now, and then to just see how this path to pro and this idea that Riot has been successful, at least for us so far in the Americas with the looks of G2. In terms of like trying to balance that and getting ready for the games, it has been challenging, but still very much doable, just because not only do I have to focus on trying to learn about the Americas teams, I'm also casting challengers, and also in challengers, I'm not a play-by-play caster. I'm back into a color caster, so I'm mixing roles here and there when I'm casting online and when I'm casting here between challengers and VCTs respectively. I'm also doing game changers, so there's a lot of teams to study upon. And that, unfortunately, sort of eats in a bit of the time to prepare for, watching VODs for other regions and stuff like that as well. Because if you're looking at certain regions, there's always good teams that are at the forefront of creating new metas, right? You're looking at DRX, for example. You're looking at the play style of Paper Rex. You're looking at even in challengers over in like Japan or in Korea, like they come up with great ideas. Fnatic, of course, is always at the forefront, and we just saw most recently with G2 coming out with their Abyss composition, which was something really cool. So like you're trying to, especially on a new map, you're trying to study a lot on the game, different types of play styles that are using different compositions. Although the approach is usually the same of how you want to attack the map, you want to see how they attack it so that you could explain it to an audience. So that is one thing in terms of casting in general. And then the other thing is now to work on myself mechanically, personally, in terms of like my play-by-play, to develop that, so that not only can I convey the macro strategy or try to explain in a to the general audience how the map or how a game or how a team approaches the round, but also how I technically do it, right? So like, how's my cadence? How are the words that I'm choosing? Am I repeating words too much? Am I stumbling on some words? What could I say differently? Am I giving the game justice? Am I creating a good storyline? So all those type of things that you have to like worry about when you're casting as well is also eats into the time of preparation. So to tie it all into a bow, It's been quite busy, but overall, I feel that in 2024 for this year, compared to the inaugural season of last year, and even previous years when we were doing the open circuit, I feel that from a competition level and from a structure with partnership, it's gone in a right path so far. And for me, mechanically, has been quite good too. I feel that my casting in 2024 has been a lot better than the previous years, and also I credit that to also my friends and my colleagues that are really good at what they do around here, and we bond very well. We have even workshop sessions where we watch each other's clips and stuff like that we want to bring and ask for advice and see what they think, and take those ideas and then bring it through. So, for example, just prepping for the Sentinels and 100 Thieves games, there were some advices that were given by Bren, by Sideshow, by Golden Boy, by my co-caster Riv, and I took those into account. Doug was there too. Like, the whole team was there pretty much, right? And took those advices, tried to like sprinkle in here and there. Can't turn into like a night and day, like perfect product, but I was really proud of myself and proud with Riv of the game we were able to provide on that. So it's always a lot of work, a lot of practice, and that's the fun part about it as well. Damn, that's long-winded.
Hey, long-winded, but that's exactly what I want to hear, man.
Okay, perfect.
For in-depth interviews, that's what I'm here for, man. That's
Awesome,
what I love it. I mean, as you said, managing a lot of things, doing plenty of work inside and even outside of the studio, as you said, with the workshop thing, pretty amazing just to hear you, listen to you, just talk about your work, just continuing that up. Not just for this year, but also the entire like duration of VCT/Valorant. Because I feel like nowadays at this point you've basically been covering Valorant since the jump. Going into just pre-franchise, going into Wild West days of 2020. Everybody's just literally figuring out what they want to do. Players moving over from different games over to this game. Events every week, online events every week, and then going over to challengers the old way. Having to qualify open qualifiers. Personally missed that, but still, you've been doing this for quite a long time. Not even mentioning all of your work before Valorant. Still, focusing on Valorant, your time there. You kind of sometimes feel overwhelmed just having to deal with so much work, and how it might affect yourself both mentally and also physically?
So to look into the work ethic around that, definitely. I think at some point, when everybody, as you said, like in 2020, not only for players, for teams or for organizations trying to hop into this new game with Valorant, I think it was also a very similar storyline for, established casters, up-and-coming casters, aspiring casters to hopefully make it and break through that door to be able to cast, a VCT, for example, right now in partnership. So it definitely took a lot of work in terms of like watching VODs, trying to study the agents and trying to figure out like what are the pros and cons of the abilities, what does it mean if I play a Phoenix instead of playing a Jet, if I play a Raze instead of a Yoru, and just try to see how the synergy around compositions kind of work. And with a game like Valorant where an agent comes out almost like every 3 or 4 months, then it really at the beginning was like overwhelming in a sense, because everybody's still trying to figure out, just like Abyss right now, like what's the best approach for 6 maps at once, until finally we have the 7 map and then 5 maps into the map pool, et cetera, right? So it was definitely overwhelming to try to get my name back out there, and to show that I still had what it took to cast, because as you mentioned here, Pedro, I've been casting for 4 years now, ever since Valorant came, already 4 years, by the way, 4 years since Valorant came out in 2020 in beta. But I started casting in 2002, so there was like a huge break in between, where in like 2011. I was still casting only online stuff for CSGO, but not as often as I used to in the past, because I had to find a career job. I had to pay some bills. I had to get rid of some debts trying to chase the dream of becoming an esports caster. But long story short, I digress here. But to try to get back into Valorant, or to get back into casting in general, when COVID was around and I got let go from my most recent job, I'm just trying to follow my passion again, which is casting video games, and be able to work within esports for commentating, esports games. And I thought Valorant was a great game for that because it's a tactical shooter, come from Counter-Strike. So it looked very appealing for me to want to try. And once I got my hands on it, I was like, oh my God, I really want to play this game and I really want to cast this game. So when you're chasing and you're doing this rat race with everybody else trying to make it, I always felt like I had to be the type of person that has to work 10 times harder than everybody else just to try to show that I have what it takes, but never have an opportunity to really prove myself, So with that mentality, I was like, VOD, region. Do I have time to do content? Not yet, because I'm still like trying to study everything at the same time. So that definitely got overwhelming at some point. And that's where, like, finally, like I said, like, for example, if I approach it back to my my involvement, if I could put it that way, within who and what I want to follow within Valorant, then I unfortunately so far really stick it into North America and the Americas for now, because that's the league that I cast. Challengers, it's North America that I cast right now. Game Changers is North America right now. And once I have free time, maybe I'll like watch some EMEA, I watch some watch parties and stuff like that to learn those. But it's important to always like know where your limit is and focus on what's important and a priority for you, right? So priority for me is focusing on the Americas region. And with that, it helps you create a healthier lifestyle because, I have a family now. I have a 8-month child now. So I want to be there as a father for the kid too, and to spend time with the family, right? I want to watch the kid grow, and I just want to spend time. I just want to spend family time, most simply said. So with that, it made things a lot easier to manage for this year, and also not having to give myself so much pressure that I always want to do a Masters or a Champs, and that, the more work I put into this, the more I'm going to have chances. And at some point, you have to face the reality of like, we have it good where we are right now, at least in my position. And yes, it's a nice to have. It'll be a super nice to have if we're able to do a Masters or a Champs. But if it's not a must have, because I've still made it, if I could put it into that definition. So I'm still able to cast some Valorant. I'm still able to cast some high tier Valorant, and I still get to work with some awesome people that I consider some very good friends. And it's not considered a job, right? So, because when I started this, and it was a pipe dream for me in 2002, this was the dream, right? So I'm still living a dream now and actually getting paid for this time versus 2002 until 2011 when I had to leave the scene in esports in general because I wasn't making money back then. I was actually in debt because of that, but that's a different story. But overall, I think that's the most important thing. I still get to do a good job with great people, and because it's such a fun job and it's still a passion I get to follow, it's not considered a job because I'm having fun doing it, which is why sometimes also the extra hours don't really matter for me that much if it's only like in seldom spurts, because again, it's still important to have a work-life balance.
An interesting point that you brought up, just sort of like looking at just appearing in international events, because for a lot of people, I would say, appearing in the Masters, appearing in the Champs would be like a major highlight for themselves. Mm-hmm. But I mean, looking at your career, you've been only able to cast, I might be wrong, you can correct me, the first international Masters Reykjavik. Yeah. And then from then on, mostly been covering the domestic side. I mean, should you, does appearing in an international Masters, does that matter to you at this point? Is that the kind of thing that kind of motivates you for, or is it just, as you said, just sort of just relishing in the fact that you're able to do what you love, and just being able to just continue being at it for as long as you want? Yeah.
First off, thank you. You do your research. So yes, the first event that I've done internationally was Masters Reykjavik in 2021, but that was also during COVID times where unfortunately it was still an online environment. So yes, I was able to do a Masters, but that's asterisk. I haven't done one with like a live event with crowds. So the first S-tier event that I've done with a crowd for me in Valorant has been the Game Changers the last couple of years, but being able to do the grand finals as well in Brazil with Potter was the highlight so far of my career in Valorant. Yes, definitely. I won't lie that, the hunt or the dream or the chase to be able to do a Masters event or a Champions event is always going to be there. But I've gotten to a point where, like I said just previously, it's like a nice to have. So if I don't have it, I can't be disappointed by it at all, because if you look at the talent list that gets announced every single time for these Masters and Champs, it is an A-tier list. They are so good at what they do, and they always give me inspiration. I always keep a close eye to how, the best of the best do it, and try to see how I could develop my own style while still being at the level that they want to be, right? Which is why, like I said, I do a lot of like VOD reviews to look back at, the technicality of my play-by-play and the technicality of my color casting when I have to do color casting. And the reason why it's always a dream for me is because I've been doing this again since 2002. We're now 2024. In October, it'll be now officially 22 years that I've been casting video games. And I've never done like an event that had at least 8,000 to 10,000 people in a live crowd. And I think that's something that I would love to do. I think back then I was always inspired to hopefully be announced to be play caster of the year. Just to be a nominee would be good enough, but I don't care about that anymore. For me, it's just to be able to be surrounded by a live audience, a live crowd, and hopefully with my casting be able to give that level of excitement that I feel when I watch a game, and the level of excitement that I feel when I'm screaming on a microphone, that people in the stage and the audience will feel that, right? I always see like chat pop off and stuff like that too in Twitch chat when I watch the main stream or any watch partiers, and they pop off in the same level that I pop off, and it's super fun to read. But now I want to see and feel the rumbling of the crowd with it when I'm able to cast in an arena. So yeah, definitely, it's still the top priority, but also not at a point where I would get disappointed if I didn't get picked, because again, I mean, we have such a good product and such a talented list of casters, and even if you're looking at those that are not the regulars that are doing these events, everybody else that's currently casting in the other regions, right? I'm thinking of like Will Chobra, for example, or you're looking at Mitch and Tom that don't get to do every single event, but they're still great at what they do. And, at that level, they're still not picked because there's only a certain amount of talent that could actually go, right? And it makes it very difficult. And like, even if you're looking at this here right now in America's chat, I just call you guys chat. When you're looking at the talent that just came up here in America's, I mean, crap, you have Uber and White. That's another great duo that I wouldn't be surprised to see on an international stage before me. And I accept that. It's not a bad thing because, again, I'm surrounded by such good people that I'm rooting for my friends. I'm rooting for those people to succeed. Sometimes more than me, and sometimes it's my default to be so selfless. And I try to say that in a humble way. But like, you just accept it at that point, and I never take it against my friends that currently are able to do these events. But hopefully someday, man. I think right now it's just. You're going to keep. I just have to keep grinding, keep my head down. I know I have what it takes. It's just that a lot of these moments are like being at the right place at the right time, So if something ever pops up and there's an opportunity, and they'll give it to me, So I trust the process. I trust the journey. And I also trust not only my friends who are casting this game, but the people that I work for here at Riot that, they'll find the right time, and they'll know the right time, and I'll have my opportunity.
You listed out a great name of people that have been working as broadcasters, especially in the present, and people that I have had the privilege of talking to. Yeah. Just staying within that aspect. I mean, for yourself, you've been able to talk to, or more so, work with plenty of other people besides those that you've already mentioned so far in this conversation. One of the people that I kind of want to point out is Riv, your current casting partner, one that has been working in League of Legends for basically the entire existence up until the point in which Valorant came out, and he said, "Let's go to Valorant. Let me just do a copy and paste." I'm just joking, of course, into this new game. I mean, how's the experience been like, just working with Rib and just having to work and learn and just having to bounce off of each other as a partnership duo?
Yeah. That's also a great question, and actually, Riv and I go way back. Even before Riv started casting League of Legends, I think in like 2011 or 2013, there was a moment where we were casting together in Counter-Strike 1.6, and this was just online only. And again, an era where nobody was making money, but we had an opportunity to work a little bit until Riv went over to League of Legends, and we never had a chance to work again until Valorant. So already there was a friendship and camaraderie already existing with Riv. So it made it a lot easier for us when Riot wanted to put us together to just kick it off on the right foot, right? We didn't have to get to know each other too well. But they put us together, I think, in 2022. This was roughly after LCQ, right? The LCQ that in 2021 that, oh my God, it got canceled in like 2 days, but that's a different story. In 2022, we started casting together, and then I was still a color commentator and Riv was play-by-play. And then at some point, I can't remember where within the year or whatnot, maybe it was 2023, 2023 because when partnership first started. So we got to cast a bit online, and then in 2022 at some point, Riv wanted to switch from play-by-play to color commentary. And I was like, yeah, that's not a problem, because for me, I feel like I'm able to flip well into play-by-play or color, but it's just because I treat casting like an art. It's not as easy to just flip the switch and go into play-by-play or flip the switch and go into color. There's still some qualities into color casting. There's some qualities into play-by-play that you need to focus on in those different areas. So it's like I'm trying to hop back on the bicycle, and trying to get the groove of going back into play-by-play now that Riv wanted to do color. So there's a period of adjustment in the first place where, Riv has to get used to his role as a color. I have to get used to my role as a play-by-play. And then once we understand what we kind of need to focus on in our craft, that's when you have to start working on each other so that it starts to synergize where, we were used to me being color rather, and then now it has to switch over. So how do we pass the mic, and when's the right moment? And even in our own style of casting, when do we know we could say a one-word thing and then it's not going to disrupt the flow of the other person talking, So there's a lot of work that goes into that. So I think in the first year in 2023, especially with my mentality of this whole rat race kind of thing, and I wanted us to be the perfect duo and stuff like that in order for us to hopefully finally get a Masters. I think it hindered into our synergy. So in 2024, I feel like our product as a duo has been far better than it was in 2023, just because we focused on what we were really good at and tried to embellish that a little bit more. So so again, the back and forth and completing each other or adding the extra step into the yes and of how we're casting has gone a lot better. And that in itself allowed for us to be more comfortable and reach a certain flow state and comfort level when we're trying to cast around. So it's been a long work in progress. There's still a lot more work to do, but overall, I would like to say on our behalf, and I'm sure Riv would agree too, that our casting has been a lot better this year in 2024 than it has in the previous years, and that's also thanks to the experience that Riv also brings from casting, right? So he's been casting almost as long as I have, maybe roughly 20 years now. I think he only started a little bit later than I did. And for him to have the experience to work in League of Legends, to work with the production, to understand the flow of a show, that also helps into helping me to learn a little bit better when I first got into the VCT Americas and learn this flow, learn about the studio, and get to where we are now. So it's been a fun progress so far, and I hope we'll have a chance to continue.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a few times already in this recent answer and also earlier on in the conversation, just looking at how long you've been doing this, 20 years. I mean, that's almost as long as I've been, it's almost as long as I've been alive, to be honest. I mean, it speaks to the level and longevity of the work that you put in. I mean, just want to ask you about that. I mean, I remember a tweet that you put out sometime earlier ago about a screenshot of yourself and some other player.
Yeah.
Pardon me if I don't have their name, but it was covering the CPO 2003
exactly.
title, championship, covering CS 1.6.
Yeah.
I mean, just how do you kind of compare yourself back then in those early days, just having to find your way of casting compared to right now, in which you've kind of, it's fair to say that you've established yourself as a caster in this game, in this new game, and being a much more experienced person. So how do you kind of compare yourself from the younger Vansilli to the current Vansilli?
Yeah, for sure. That's another quick question. You're right. It was CPL Summer 2003. This was in Texas. CPL stood for the Cyber Athlete Professional League. So this was back then, I think, the biggest event for Counter-Strike, where you had the international teams from Sweden, like SK, for example, or NIP, that would fly in here to North America and Texas to try to compete for a prize pool where first place was like $50,000. So it was a lot of money back then. But on that picture was me and a fellow TSN caster. That was the organization that we used to work for when we casted video games. It was the Team Sportscast Network. So shout out to TSN if there's still people out there that passively watch esports in that group. But Boomerman was the guy that was casting with me on that picture, and he's a great guy. And unfortunately, he doesn't cast anymore. But yeah, I think definitely the older 18-year-old Vansilli, the 17-year-old that first started, and 18 years old when he did his first event in CPL Summer 2003, looking up into the future and looking at me now, would probably be very proud of the progress that we were able to do in the past 22 years. I think when I first started doing this, not only in 2002, we were in an era, where video actually didn't even exist yet. So you had to cast in an audio format only, as if you're listening to AM radio to like you're turning on, you're just listening into the radio and just trying to listen to the action. And you had to be very, very, very descriptive and quick, because again, Counter-Strike is just like Valorant. It's a tactical shooter. There's a lot of action that happens. It's in spurts of moments, and it kind of felt like I was casting a lot like an auctioneer, because I had to cover everything. Like this person's playing from here. The flash is not only being thrown, but the flash is being thrown from the corner box of B into the back box of A, something like that. So you had to be very descriptive, so that when people would only hear the audio and hear the broadcast, you could close their eyes and picture the game and realize, okay, what's happening? Why is Jimmy Lin going here and take the challenge towards the staircase? It's a joke, but at the same time, Jimmy Lin from Aim Labs used to be a pro Counter-Strike 1.6 player back with Evil Geniuses back then, actually. But anyways, I digress for that as well. When we were casting audio only, we had to be very descriptive, and also there wasn't anybody else doing it, right? So there wasn't an opportunity for me to learn from people. I just kind of like did it as I went without really any skill set. And when CSGO came out and it got more and more popular, I think people were still figuring out the casting style and stuff like that as well, where I couldn't find inspiration or anything yet until like, oh, am I at the right place or am I not at the right place? There's always been two people that have always been up my ass, and I regret it that I haven't listened to them throughout all this time. But I still stay in good contact with them. It's Sir Scoots and Alchemist. They've been around for the longest time in esports, and have been at the top of their craft from, Sir Scoots being GM of Evil Geniuses back in, I don't remember when, but also like with Godfrey TV, they were like top notch at being producers and observers and production observers rather. So they're always telling me, Vance, you gotta watch your demos, you gotta listen to your demos, you gotta watch your demos. I was like, why would I do that, man? If I'm already doing all these events online, and I'm traveling to the CPLs, and I'm getting paid trips to cover events in like I don't know, Malaysia or Sweden and stuff like that. I in Korea, I feel like I've made it, right? So I was a little bit complacent. Actually, a little bit. I was very complacent. I almost felt like I had some sort of like a god complex to me, like, well, nobody else is doing it, I'm still doing this, so like I must be doing well. So fast forward a bit to 2011, where I didn't have the opportunity to, make a career out of casting. That's when CSGO was just coming out, and I'm like, I'm 27 years old now. I'm actually in debt trying to like live the dream of becoming an esports caster. I need to find a real-time job, a full-time job even, so I could pay off my debt, and then just come to accept that I could do this as a hobby, online stuff, and then my main thing would be a 9 to 5, and then fast forward then into now Valorant coming out in 2020. I started taking the role a lot more seriously. I finally listened to the advices, sorry, of Sir Scoots and Alchemist, and I started re-listening to some broadcasts back from Counter-Strike. I started listening to my first casts in Valorant. I'm like, God damn, this is not as good as I thought. I'm not as good as I thought I was. So that was definitely like a real, like a reality check. And that's where I really just started focusing on getting better every single time. So watch VODs, watched how I casted, and then just try to develop myself as I go. So like I said, I feel like the old me would definitely be proud of that I finally swallowed my pride and my ego and swallowed not a lot of people like to listen to themselves or like to see themselves on camera or hear themselves on a mic. I'm one of them somehow. But you know, I had to swallow that pride and push that aside and start watching those casts so I could improve. And that's a huge factor, contributing factor into my development as well within Valorant itself. So I feel that the past 4 years for me, the past 4 years that I've developed my casting in Valorant has superseded by miles the other 18 years that I've done from like online and CS only. So there's still some things I could take back from my casting back then that still I think sounds good, but overall has kind of like done a 180-degree turn for the better casting Valorant now because of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, gotta ask, does it kind of feel like now that you feel at your best casting Valorant, do you sometimes think back as to like, oh shit, what I could have done, man? You know, does the regret still linger for you about those early years?
Yeah, that's a great question because I always have this moment sometimes where, you know, just for fun, I think about the what ifs, you know. And my what if, remember when I talked about 2011 when I decided to stop and go do a 9-to-5 job? I just finished doing my second ESE LAN. So if I'm not mistaken, I know definitely I did ESE LAN 15, or it was ESE LAN 14 or 16. But the last one that I did for ESE LAN, because I did for 2 years, that event, I was casting with Anders, with Dust, Moret, with Sadokist also, and then actually I'll tell you a funny story, an anecdote at the same time as well. So in between games, there's always breaks and stuff like that as well, right? So I step outside, hang out with the casters. I hang out with some of the players as well because Sean Garris was also playing back then in CS, This guy was like hanging out by the door, and he comes up to us and he says, "Yo, what's up?" And I was like, "Yo, Vance, how's it going? You remember me?" I was like, "No, I don't remember you, man. Like, what's your name again? Sorry." He's like, "Oh, it's me, bro. It's Jason." I was like, "Moses?" He's like, "Yeah." So because Moses, when I used to, so he used to be a pro in 1.6 as well, playing for a team called United 5, and I was casting his games. So we knew each other and we had the rapport through there, but I never had a chance to really like hang out and talk to him in person. And back then he had a lot of hair. That now going into 2011, he's bald, right? So I didn't recognize him at first. And then he was telling me, "Yo, yeah, I'm thinking of potentially, you know, just stop playing CS," because he was playing with Team Elevate back then in CS:GO, and that was with Storm, Warden, and et cetera, like the old school like superstar team. Anyways, he goes, "Yeah, I'm thinking of going into casting. I think, I'm going to try to chat with Anders and Sembler and see where that's going to go." I was like, "Oh man, that's cool." And then suddenly, like, Room on Fire was created, and then Nip TV was picked up, or vice versa. It was Nip TV, then Room on Fire, rather. And then those guys just started popping off there in the CS scene. So I had that moment of like, man, what would have happened if I stuck around like an extra year? Would I have had an opportunity to, you know, make it and start doing these CS events and develop my career a lot earlier back then than now, and develop my casting a lot earlier than now, because I would have more opportunities and to do international events and stuff like that too. So there's always that moment of what if, and like the slight regret of like of leaving a little bit too early, because I'll never know what would have happened. But I've always also had the other aspect and look in towards my life, or in general, of like everything happens for a reason, right? So thanks to casting, I was able to be a lot more comfortable in front of a camera, a lot more comfortable talking to people. So that helped me develop some interpersonal skills that then allowed me to move into my 9-to-5 job, because I used esports and then I used my casting. That's something that's unique that people haven't heard about, and utilize that to now have my full-time job, my 9 to 5. And then after that, when I lost my job in 2019 and 2020, sorry, and Valorant came out, then at least I have the experience of what it's like to work in a corporate world and understand how that totally runs and stuff like that too, which is why, again, when I don't have like these opportunities to cast Masters or Champs, it's like just a business thing. It's just a business decision, and you just accept it because you understand, what they have to go through and how they have to like plan everything as well. So it is what it is, But man, it would have been cool at some point if I could have casted more events. I know I've done some MLG. I think I did MLG Columbus in 2016 for the American qualifiers. That's where I had the chance to cast again with Moses, with other people like Healy Umbrella that currently works the EVS with the Masters events and Champs events. But yeah, I think maybe if I tried to stick to it, maybe I could have an opportunity, but. At least we have it now, Everything happens for a reason. We come back here now. We're able to do VCTs, and we're still happy. So, some regret, but still happy where we landed.
Oh, no, for sure. I got to ask you about what did you do during those, I would say, period between 2011 and 2020? I mean, going into just that working corporate. I mean, talk to me about that time. What did you do?
Yeah. So I tried to go. I just tried to figure out my life at that point. At 27 years old, I was like, okay, well, it looks like finally I'm going to listen to my friends and family that are telling me, look, I'm not going to make it and stuff like that too. It's time to give up that dream and to try to find a real job. So I went back to school. At first, I went to go study in film. Actually, I dropped out of school from film when I was 21, but then I still wanted to go back and finish a degree. So I went back to school for a bit. I had an idea to like build a website for like some idea. Maybe it's still a good idea, so I'm not going to talk about it now. But but I went back to school in computer science, at university, so I could meet people, network with people, and hopefully meet coders so that we could actually get the website going, et cetera, et cetera. And while I was studying, I had a friend of mine who was a headhunter, and she was like, "Hey, I got an opportunity as a part-time job to work for a company, and it's only Fridays to Sundays if you're interested in doing it, and you could come and try to do the interview and see what's up." So like, sure, why not? I need money while I'm studying, so let's do it. So while I do this job, it's an interview to actually work for Philip Morris in Canada, so a tobacco company, and they're like, yeah, so it's just like we're just trying to educate like people that work behind the counter at convenience stores and whatever about our products, because rules and regulations around Canada is that you can't advertise tobacco to the general public. So the only way that somebody could get information about a certain product is to ask the person behind the till. So you're educating about your products to the people around the till, behind the till. So I started off with that as a student job. And then one day, my boss took me out to a Red Bull event called Flying Bach. It was actually pretty cool. It's memorable because it was a fun event by Red Bull. But it was basically in a church, candles all around. There was 2 pianos, a classical piano and a more like aristocratic piano, like it was like dun, 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 like that kind of stuff. So there were 2 pianists and then breakdancers breakdancing on Bach melodies and songs with some hip hop beats. It was freaking cool. Anyways, my boss was like, "Oh, I got to go tomorrow. I got to interview blah 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 to like try to hire a new person." I was like, "Yo, are you looking for somebody? Just hire me, bro." He's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, if you're serious, just apply." So I applied, and then they liked me, and then I finally had a full-time job working for Philip Morris as a sales rep in Montreal. So I did that for a year, and after that year, they asked me if I wanted to work in Toronto at the head office. So I moved to Toronto, worked there for 5 years, and then I moved back to Montreal 5 years later because unfortunately my mom fell sick, and she was battling cancer for 3 years now. The doctors are giving her 6 to 8 months. And then I was like, you know what? Like one day I just woke up, didn't talk to anybody. I asked for my boss to send me back home so I could spend some time with my mom. So I went back, moved back to my parents' place, and then got to spend my mom's final year with her before she passed in 2018. And then after that, I went back as a sales rep here in Montreal. And then I got poached by Jewel. So I started working for Jewel after as a sales rep for there. And unfortunately, as you all read and see, like as much as Jewel had such a prominent success, it was also their downfall because they were so successful. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. And then I got let go during the COVID times. And that's where Valorant came out. And boom, full circle, we're back here again.
For sure. I mean, it's an amazing story that you've been able to just tell me and tell the audience that are listening to this.
Yeah.
I mean, you went a long way just to go from that to now to leaving esports, returning esports, and now getting into Valorant. Got one more final question before, since I got the heads up that tells me I got to wrap up.
Damn, man, I was ready to go, but I know I got a cast after. I got Crew and 100Ds coming up.
I mean, such is the way.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think just continues? What do you think just helped you just enable? What do you think enabled you to just continue working at it, continue to pursue this job / dream that you've been initially working towards, wasn't able to achieve it back then, but now it feels like now that you are able to just make it happen, finally make it happen after a period of struggle, feelings of not feeling like, I would say, regret, and also the feeling of like maybe you were not destined for this. I mean, what enabled you to just make it all happen despite everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is always trust and believe in yourself in the first place, which is why in the first 2002, 2011, the first 9 years, it was like, I'm just going to listen to myself because I feel like I have what it takes and I could do it, right? So you believe in yourself a lot. And then you hit the harsh reality that, it still doesn't pay. So you have to still, find a real job. And then finally, when you're in an era back in 2020 when people could actually make a career out of casting and whatnot at this level, I think two of the main contributors into helping me get back into it were two people, my older brother and my wife, right? My brother has always been a strong supporter for me. He was like the only one that believed in me out of my family, that, someday it'll pop and something will happen and I'll be able to make it. And then for my wife, when I lost my job over at Jewel, she said, look, you got a good severance package. You're out of debt now because you're able to pay that do that 9 to 5 and pay all your debts. And she's like, hey, you love casting, you love esports. Why don't you just give it another shot? And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, you could find another marketing job or a sales rep job or whatever, and you'll still be able to work a 9 to 5. And thankfully, I had just enough savings to try to toughen it out for a couple of months. And I got let go. I got let go from Jewel in February of 2020. And I think it was April of 2020 that the first round of beta keys came out for Valorant. So with the severance package that I got from Jewel, I bought a new computer, I bought a setup, I bought a microphone, I bought some lights, and I gave it a shot. I gave it one more shot. And I'm always going to be grateful for my friends that work over at Knights Arena, Bach that used to work here with Nerd Street Gamers, and Ms. Harvey, who currently works here with FlyQuest. They've been people that have been following me for the longest time, good friends, and they support me and believe in what I could do as well. So they gave me opportunities to get reps and casting and back in Valorant, and everything's history from there, right? You get more opportunities. Now you're able to do Ignition Series back in 2020. You get more exposure with Riot, and now you have an opportunity to do this now. So again, I don't think that I would be able to be here right now if it wasn't for my brother and my wife to give me that final push to try it one more time and see where it's going to lead us. So now while we're here, we just try to ride the wave and do as much as we could and just enjoy surfing that wave until it calms down for a bit and figure out if we could catch the next wave.
Right on, Vansilli. I really do appreciate you telling me your entire story and just having to allow the audience to listen to what you have to say. And very beautiful story that you talked to me. And that's it. I'm going to wrap up the interview. Thank you so much, Vansilli.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Pedro.